All right. Welcome back to Living in Infinity. Sorry, I had to think about the name change there, but welcome back. This is episode 16. We're going to be doing another episode like we did last time, where we just kind of shoot the shit on some philosophical points. So, pretty, yeah, not a strict schedule for this one, but we'll see where it goes. I'm excited.
Yeah, for sure. Um, is there anyone in particular that you want to start with? I know we kind of put together a list before this.
Yeah, I thought we could just keep it nice and light and go with the deaf one.
Okay. Um, I'll let you start on this one then. What is your attitude towards that?
Um, well, hmm, it's just depends when you ask me. Sometimes, sometimes I'm not scared of it, but I don't want it to happen for sure, just
Mhm.
because of how much I am enjoying life, or how much there's still how much left there is still that I want to do and experience. And so I think death came early, unexpectedly. Like I would just be sad uh, to think about all I missed out on. But at the same time, I wouldn't say I'm afraid of it. Um, and, and that's just all from kind of my religious beliefs. But yeah, I don't I don't fear it. I'm not quite on the level of Elon where he thinks of death as like an escape. Like he'd be like, you know, I'm sure you know this. He was asked what he thought about death, and he was like, it'd be a relief for him, just
Mm.
because of how crazy his life is, how much stress he handles. I wouldn't say it's a relief, but I believe that with death comes that peace, that everlasting peace that I think we all kind of yearn for. So in that sense, it's yeah, kind of a good thing.
Mhm. Yeah, I'd say I generally feel the same. Or I think I'm probably maybe a little more scared of it than you are, just because, like you said, there's so much that I still want to do and be able to experience, be able to accomplish, and so obviously a short end would not be ideal. It's not something that I like think about often though. It's not like, something that I'm like genuinely like terrified of and like I don't want to like I mean, going back to like our high school days, like we did some pretty risky stuff as far as like cliff jumping and stuff like that. Like I'm not so scared of death to the point where I'm like I'm not gonna do anything that like could put me in that kind of situation.
Yeah.
But
To thinking back to those days, I don't think I was like uh I wasn't doing that stuff because I had like conquered my fear of death though. It more just seemed like some sort of abstract, unapplicable to me type of thing. Like
mm,
other people are dying. I'm good.
right.
It never occurred to me that it could happen to me.
Yeah.
But then just lately, like whether it's political shit or like I've had some, not some close friends, but just people I knew, they've passed. And then you kind of get to where like, oh, wait a
Yeah.
minute. Like, okay,
Yeah.
this this applies to me now. And so because of that, I've really had to like grapple with it. And I've come to the point now where it's like, I wouldn't say I've like conquered my fear of death. I mean, there's still a part of it that's like scared of it for sure, but
Mhm.
I'm just a lot more comfortable with it.
I'm not even sure if it would be healthy or wise to like strive to not fear it. Like I feel like it's a good thing to fear death. Like it makes you appreciate life a lot more. Um, Makes you realize that everything that we do does have an end at some point, and so it's good to at least keep that in the back of your mind in like a healthy way, but allow that to make you appreciate life more, make you want to accomplish more things in life, experience as much as you can, because you do know at the end of the day, like everyone, there is an end for everybody. We don't know when exactly, but yeah, I'm for sure scared of it. But I don't think like not like an irrational fear of mine, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I would agree with what you're saying there. Definitely, I think when it is in your brain in a healthy amount and in a healthy way, it does like deepen your experience and richen your life. Um,
Mhm.
and then, yeah, another thing I was thinking about too is there's been times in my life like I'm I've gone hunting before. I wouldn't say I'm a hunter, but like I do go hunting every now and then. And that is one thing I wish I did more. I wish more people did, uh, just for the sake of this conversation, because it is, I don't know. I think it's just beneficial to like be around death. And I don't think we are in our modern way, in our modern time. Um, and so, yeah, I just think if more people got exposed to it, yeah, they would just have fuller lives.
Mhm. I think a lot of it too also depends on your religious beliefs. Like I'm not all that religious. I'd kind of consider myself agnostic. And so obviously I don't have the, I guess, comfort that a lot of like religious people would, like in knowing where they think they're gonna go after death. To me, that's a big unknown. And so there's obviously some discomfort that comes from that. But I also know too that like it even like I am scared of death, but also at the same time, it's like once I'm dead, I'm dead. Like I can't be like, oh shit, I'm dead. Like I can't grieve, you know. I guess I
Yeah,
think more about like the people around me and like what's gonna happen to them. And
yeah.
also like just the missed opportunity of getting to like experience everything. But I mean, since you are a lot more religious than I am, does that like give you some comfort when it comes to death, or are you still just as like afraid of it in a way?
Um, both. I'm comforted in my faith, uh, due to my understanding of, uh, who Jesus is. Um, so to me, it appears I'll die, and then like there's gonna be some sort of interaction with me and him. That one I'm good about if it's sure, which I think it is. Um, but no, outside of that, like the hell is this thing gonna look like? What am I gonna be?
Mm,
Who's gonna be around? Like, what? And
right.
like, I think the Christian belief is we'll leave, we'll die, and then you become spirit in heaven. I mean, the fuck does that mean? You know?
Right.
So, no, it all is very like still striking and un, unsettling in a good way, I guess, but still
Mhm.
unsettling. Yeah. Um,
Right.
that one thing that I've been thinking about lately is like, um, the like my individual moment with death. That is a very real thing that's going to happen. And it seems interesting. Like, what do you do when you are dying? It, does that make sense? Uh,
You mean like the active moment of
yeah, that's a real
like
moment
this
that's
is
going to
it?
happen. Yep, that's a real moment
Oh, yeah.
that's going to happen likely in our lives where we're like, we have the recognition we're dying. It's very
I
surreal
mean,
to
do you
think
want
about.
that? Or do you just want to get like slammed by a bus and it's just gone?
uh, I don't know. the, the bus is better than a lot of options. I'll give you that.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that would be weird. You're just alive and then dead. And then, like, let's
Yeah.
say I'm right. And then it's just like you're seeing Jesus. And you're like, will just
Yeah,
have
just
it
in a
forever.
blink.
Yeah,
Mhm.
that's very weird.
Yeah. I don't know. I feel like I'd almost want the moment, depending on the stage of my life, at least. Like if I'm like old and like it'd be a good reflecting moment, I guess. But I
Yeah,
feel like if you're experiencing that at a young age, that would be like probably the worst thing ever.
yeah, yeah. I did have a. I went through. I couldn't sleep last night, so I was like scrolling through all my photos and just got reminded
Mhm.
of all these different periods of my life and all these things I've done and people I've met. And it did dawn on me, well, there is still so much I want to do, and I'm sad about the prospect of losing out on that stuff. I do think I've reached a point, and this may sound stupid considering I'm only 24, maybe it is, but it feels like I've at least reached a point where I am content to some extent with my life. Like if I died tomorrow, I'd be like, I still had a good run, a good life.
Mhm.
Um, so I find additional comfort in that.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know if I could say that, which I don't,
Mm,
and it's not because of like, it's not that I've like missed out on certain things that I wish I would have done. It's more just like there's still so much that I want to see and be able to do. And I just haven't necessarily had the ability to do that yet. Um, but
yeah, I do feel like we're kind of. It makes sense. We're kind of opposite to that degree. Like I went and
mhm.
had my adventure right out of high school, and now you're
Yeah,
kind of like embarking on yours. So that
yeah,
that makes
exactly.
sense. Yeah.
All right, enough death talk. Let's
Okay.
try one of these other ones. Let's see. Let's just move on to number two then. Where's happiness on your list of values?
um, I was planning on asking you this question. I didn't prepare an answer for myself.
Or I
It's
guess maybe a
honest.
better question would be, where do you think it should be? Maybe it's not
Yeah.
where it is right now, but
Yeah. I don't know. My, I mean, this is very not thought through. So just give me a break. But it almost, I feel like it shouldn't be on there at all, or in little doses. Like you shouldn't
Mhm.
strive for it. It should just happiness should just be nice surprises. Like it should just take the form of nice surprises that you unexpectedly bump into along the way. I think
Yeah.
that's like the best type of happiness. When I think back to my life, it's like moments where shit sucks and like I mean, I guess you can be alone. It's typically better when people are in the suck with you. But then there's just like little moments that crack you up or uh, that just hit you. And those moments of happiness are like way better than moments of happiness that I've like planned or strategized to
Mhm.
get. Um, and so that's kind of the reasoning for why I say it like just shouldn't be on your radar.
Yeah. I don't think it's a bad thing for it to be on your radar, but I don't think you should. I think the common answer for most people would be like, oh, well, happiness should obviously be number one priority in your life. And I don't know if I agree with that.
Yeah.
I
Cause,
think, go ahead.
well, I just always think like of parents who are like, I just want nothing. Like the thing I want most for my kids is just for them to be happy. I'm not
Yeah.
sure why I think that's wrong, but it does strike me as weird.
Yeah. I think you should at least be aware of whether or not you are happy. So you can make changes that would be necessary if you're not happy with your life. But I also think there's a lot of value in the discomfort of life and like the unhappiness stages that you go through. Cause it's just not a realistic thing to be happy all of the time, no matter how perfectly optimized your life is. Like it's just not realistic at all. And so
Yeah.
I think it should
Uh,
be on the list. I don't necessarily know where, but definitely not like it shouldn't be number one, I don't think.
yeah. Yeah, and I guess I wouldn't say that, like, you should value suffering more just for the sake of suffering, but it should be like you should mm, your main goal should be to suffer with purpose. I
Right.
think that's where you feel the best.
Yeah.
Um, I yeah, and then, like, beyond happiness, I think, like, if I were to wish something for my hypothetical kids, like, I would say, like, peace or, I want them to be content, because I think you can be happy and still, like, unbelievably, still, I don't know, lacking something inside. But if you're content, like,
Mm,
that's good. That's a good spot.
yeah. I'd almost put, I mean, you mentioned purpose. I'd almost put purpose above that because I think maybe happiness itself should not be a goal, but kind of like you said, it should kind of be a byproduct of like all your other values that you're striving for. Like purpose, for example, if you know what your or some of your purposes are in life and what you want to do and accomplish, a result of that should be happiness. Happiness itself should not be something that
Yeah.
you actively like strive towards. Uh,
Yeah, and so an example I'm gonna use here is, uh, our recent trip to visit you. So, like, I would say the main goal of that trip was to strengthen bonds with friends and, like, grow
Mhm.
relationships. Uh, and out of that came the happiness experience, like, the things we did,
Yeah,
fell and whatnot.
yeah, no, for sure. I think if you put too much emphasis on happiness, then it's probably counterproductive in a way, because then you're gonna be like microanalyzing everything that you're doing and like how it makes you feel. Um, I kind of lost my train of thought there, but this is not something I've like put a whole lot of deep thought into. But
I think we came up on a good thing though, happiness as a byproduct. That
yeah,
it's a,
that makes more
I
sense in my mind, I think.
yeah, I think that's a valuable conclusion.
Hmm. Mm. All right, let's move on to the next one then.
Yep.
So number three, when do you think you work best alone, and when do you work best in a group?
So the reason I thought of this question is because uh, so training for this ultra marathon, I do all my training minus the occasional run with my fiance. I do all my training by myself, and I find that I uh, just train effectively on my own. So, like, sometimes I feel like when you're doing physical things or even mental, it helps to do it in a group because then you have those people that are better than you, and that pushes you. And, uh, and that's certainly the case. Uh, but just for some reason, when it comes to running, like, even in absence of that, I feel like I push myself like adequately hard for what I need to do at the moment. But for the actual run, the actual ultra, I'll be running with this guy that, like, I kind of know, just their work, but I'm not super familiar with him. But he's a talker. He just chats all day. And why I like to run is because he don't talk. It's just kind of me,
Mhm.
silence. It's good. And so I'm I'm like half regretting this decision to to have agreed to this. Um, I'm gonna go through with it. It'll be fun, and that we're gonna be out there for a long time. So I'm hopefully he hopefully one of two things happen. Either he just runs out of things to talk about, or I start to enjoy the conversation, and or maybe I just will from the start. Who knows? He's a nice guy. So,
Mhm.
but but yeah, I just wanted to get your thoughts on it. Like, are there moments where you think you do better alone, or do you typically do better always when you're with people, or what?
Mhm. I mean, it definitely depends on the context for me. I guess the first thing that would mainly come to mind is like business and whether or not I choose to work by myself or work with others. And that I think is more just dependent on what I'm trying to do and whether or not like my strengths um are like suited towards doing this business either by myself or with others. So for example, like in business, which I've had plenty of experiences of like working with people where I'm just the entire time I'm thinking like I could just be doing all this myself and it would like be things would be so much more efficient. The work itself would be so much better because like I just feel like I'm more skilled at whatever it is that we're trying to do. Um, but then I've also been in scenarios where I mean now that I've had enough learning experiences of like, okay, I know what I'm really good at. I know what I can use help in. And so now I'm kind of in the position, which for the first time and like probably ever, where the main company that I'm working on, like I have my clear set of roles that I do that I think I'm the best at out of the group. And then the other people that I'm working with, I can fully trust them to like take care of it and do a much better job than I would just because they have more experience in that area. And so for me, it's more, I think you have to pick and choose on when is the right time for like me to just take control and do it myself versus when should I lean on others and be able to trust them because then it kind of brings up everybody as a whole. Like running, for example, you could have a scenario where maybe you're running with someone that you feel like holds you back because maybe they talk too much and like it kind of bothers you and so it stresses you out a little bit. Or maybe you have someone that like is just way more in shape than you and he pushes you harder than, you know, what you would push yourself when you're just by yourself.
Yeah,
So
yeah, and um, I I don't know. I've had a few experiences like that where you do get matched up with someone who's just way better at whatever it is you're doing, and it is very cool.
yeah.
And they just those memories stick with you for a long time. So I definitely
Mhm.
appreciate that, and then I mean, hopefully that happens. I do think this guy he's been running for a while, and I mean I think he'll lead the way for sure. So hopefully that happens, and I mean, if not, I'm sure it'll be a fun time. But it's just been something I've been kind of thinking about because
Yeah.
if it does go bad, that's a long time to be stuck with someone you don't get along with.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you could always like playfully mention too that you're just not a big talker whenever you run. Like, I don't
Yeah,
think he'd take any offense to that.
yeah, yeah.
But especially if you guys are going to be doing like, how long is this race?
We'll probably be out there for I think if it goes good, it'll be 6 hours. If it goes bad, like 8.
Yeah. You're kind of rolling the dice there on
Yeah,
whether it's going to be good or bad. So, I mean, it might be helpful to at least have some sort of conversation of like, I'm not that big on talking a whole lot, you know, especially if it's 8 hours long. Like you might be 3 hours in and this guy's just like talking your head off.
yeah. Because the other thing, and I'll ask you a kind of question that we can explore after, but um, it's kind of like my time spent running is kind of my time to reconnect, and I call it like it's like my church. Um,
Mm,
and so that's kind of something I'm afraid. This is a really good opportunity to just really like have a long time of solitude to just sit on some things and uh, whatever they, you know, connect with God, if you will. And um, so I just kind of feel like like I might be missing out on some quality time spent alone. But so that's my question. Like, do you um, value time alone as well? Do you like to get out and get away, or
Yeah.
anything like that? Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I think I value alone time a lot more than the average person. I think a lot of people aren't comfortable being by themselves. So they always want to be around friends and family, which I don't necessarily think is a bad thing, but I also think it's like, it's good to just be able to sit by yourself and like be content with your own company, your own thoughts, without having to like numb your mind to like some TV show or whatever. Like, especially with running, like I enjoy running with people, but also like, I guess a better example would be lifting. I lift like 5, 6 days a week, and I have found like I don't mind lifting with other people, but I have found that I just enjoy it way more when it's just me. Like I've got my AirPods in, the noise cancellation on, like I'm just kind of, it's like I'm the only one there in the gym, but obviously there's a lot of people there, but it's like I'm just completely zoned out and oblivious to everything. And that's just like my time with me. Uh, but I think
Yeah.
it would be good for a lot of people to be able to like practice that in whichever way it might be, whether it's exercise or maybe just like sitting at sitting outside by yourself, like no music or anything, like just like content with you and your thoughts for a little bit. I think it's something that's healthy that most people should probably do a lot more of.
Yeah. Uh, Definitely provides a nice opportunity to quiet your mind, reflect a little bit. But then also, I don't know this for a fact, but I feel like it helps with your dopamine as well. Like if you just
Oh yeah.
are constantly talking or interacting with people or media or music or whatever it is, the dopamine's got to just be bled dry. I think.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
No, I've, I've actually over the past several months, I've done a lot of like research on this topic. Like Huberman talks about it a lot. This era that we're living in right now, I think most people are just like overstimulated all the time. Like they're either around a bunch of people at work, they're like caffeinated out of their minds. They come home, they're immediately like just doom scrolling through their phone, like throw on TV shows, movies, whatever. Like there's not majority of people, there's like rarely a time where they're just like with themselves, like no sort of external stimulation at all. And like that's definitely, yeah, that'll just completely deplete your dopamine. And so whenever that time comes where like you are just by yourself or you do this long enough for a long enough period, you're just going to feel, I guess, a bit depressed because you've just completely depleted your dopamine levels. And I think that's why like depression and anxiety is so common these days, because not even because there's anything like super inherently wrong with society. It's just people are just overstimulated and they don't even realize it. Um,
for
so I
sure.
think
And oh, go ahead.
I should say, I think like people try to like find specific reasons for like why depression is so common now. Whether it's like the people like, oh, it's social media, or oh, it's like just the way people are like treating others now. Like they'll try to attribute some reason to it when I think in reality it's just there's too much going on all the time. And
Yeah.
that only lasts for so long, to where your dopamine levels are just going to be completely fried out. And you do that for a long enough period, there's like your brain will actually like drop to that low baseline. And it's
Yeah.
hard to get it back up without some sort of like detox or stuff. Like it takes work to get it back.
Yeah. And I would say that's probably working in combination with like a lack of satisfaction from producing things.
Mhm.
Even if you just go back like 20, 30, 40, 50 years. Life back then, as far as I can tell, people were just doing a lot more in terms of not even anything crazy, just cooking or cleaning or,
Mhm.
um, you know, taking care of your car, mowing your lawn. I mean, these are all kind of things now that have been um, all responsibilities now that can easily be um, delegated away. And so then you wake up and are left to do nothing but, um, yeah, be on your phone, go to work where you probably, odds are you probably don't enjoy it based
Mhm.
on everybody that I know. You feel kind of a lack of satisfaction from the time that you work and whatever else. So, yeah, low dopamine and just a lack of like engaging with the world. I mean, as
Yeah.
annoying as it might be to cook food, that is life right there. What you're doing, and without that, that's a big or without things like it, it's a big thing you're missing out on.
Yeah, for sure. And it's still something that like I struggle with. Like I'll find myself like just doom scrolling through Twitter or like if I get bored, I'll end up watching YouTube videos for a couple hours. Like it's a very easy trap to get caught into, but I think it's good to at least have some level of consciousness of like, being able to just like take a step back for a moment, be with
Yeah,
just your thoughts and kind of allow your dopamine to like get back to like its original levels. So you're not just
yeah,
going through this vicious cycle of like super overstimulated, super understimulated over and over and over.
yeah, yeah, and because I mean, I think it's worth saying like it's not that hmm, Twitter or I mean X or YouTube. It's not that they're inherently bad. I mean, without YouTube, I would be a lot less cool than I am, you know?
Yeah,
Like,
same.
the YouTube is so good for exposing you to so many different things. Like, it's a big reason why I run. It's a big reason why I read. It's a big reason, I do a lot of things. And then X, I mean, it's the greatest source of news we have now. And so you have
Yeah.
to figure out, yeah, just that balance of, these are important things in our modern life, but yeah, you can use them too much and you gotta, yes, figure that
Mhm.
out.
Think about like the kids right now, like all the iPad kids that are just like they always have some sort of screen in front of them. Like they're basically like being raised with depression built into them. Like that's
Yeah,
not a healthy environment for a brain that's like still very underdeveloped. Like they're being raised to the point where they have constant, instant stimulation at any time. Like that's gonna probably cause serious problems for them long term. That's why everyone thinks they're ADHD now because like
yeah,
maybe they are ADHD, maybe they aren't, but like it's really just probably a result of being constantly stimulated. And so your brain is just like, there's just too much going on. And you're always like context switching to like get this new novel hit of dopamine. And so that's what your brain gets used to. And then as a result, you're, like I said before, depression is a lot more common. ADHD, like basically everyone thinks they have ADHD now. They think they can't function without Adderall or something. And so
mhm,
I think there could be serious consequences of this for brain development. Um, or maybe we just begin to kind of adapt to it. I don't really know how it would end up, but I would say more likely than not, it's probably a bad thing.
yeah, yeah, um, hmm, I know this is very interesting, and you're probably dead on. I wish I knew more, like, hard facts about it, but I know a kid that's like that just is raised by an iPad, has divorced parents, and the mom, she kicks ass, but she is like, she's, just I think she's in charge of, like, a whole factory, so, obviously her time's just um,
Yeah.
taken up all by that, and so this kid's just left with his iPad, and yeah, it's sad.
Mhm.
Mhm.
And a lot of what I said is speculation. Like, I don't know for a fact that these are the reasons why depression levels are higher and ADHD, the amount of people with ADHD is a lot higher, but I would put, I feel pretty confident that that's probably the reason
Yeah.
why all this is
Oh,
happening.
or at least a big part of the reason why.
Yeah.
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 Same.
I am grateful that we kind of missed that era. I mean, we had TV obviously, but we didn't have TV and our own iPad, smartphone when we're like 8. Like,
Yeah.
that was just not a thing.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say there was a lot of technology in my life growing up, uh, but it wasn't like I still yeah, I had a good balance. Although as a teenager, I put in some hours on Netflix. I watched
Totally.
shit. So,
Yeah.
yeah, a lot of TV. But
Yeah.
looking back, I regret that. I mean, it's just
Yeah.
between that and then school, which is 99% of that was a waste of time. I mean, so many hours of my life just down the down the drain.
Mhm.
So a big regret, but yeah, definitely watched a lot of TV.
Yeah. I guess for me, it's probably more video games. Um, like I would say middle school, most of middle school, I played just an ungodly amount of video games. And so, yeah, looking back, I wish I wouldn't, but also like the times when I wasn't doing that, it's not like I was just staring at a screen or something. Like me and my brother spent a lot of time outside, just like coming up with random shit to do. Like that was just kind of what we did, you know? It was never, we were bored. It was never like, oh, let me just pull up the iPad and like scroll YouTube for hours. Like we just found stuff to like go do outside or like come up with things to do. And so I think a big part of that is missing now. I think too, just like I'm nowhere near having kids if I decide to even do that. But if I, if I do get to that point, then I for sure want to like ideally not, you know, I kind of do it the similar way that I was raised. Like my kids are bored. Okay, go outside and figure something out. Like I'm not just gonna
Yeah.
chuck a screen in front of them and let them do their
So
thing for.
right. So the first half of my childhood, I spent like half my time on my dad's farm, and then the other half of the time I was at my mom's house, which is in a subdivision. And but the point is that I had access to outside, and so I
Mm.
spent a lot of time outside. But then in I believe like eighth grade, maybe my dad moved to an apartment complex, and that's when I started watching like a lot of
Yeah.
TV. And so I wonder if you could do a study like the differences between kids raised in an apartment complex where they don't have like a yard or immediate access to outside, where they can just run
Yeah.
around and do kid things. It might compare that to a kid that does. Like, I feel like there would
Mhm.
be some substantial differences.
Oh yeah, for sure. That would actually be really interesting to see. 'Cause I guess, yeah, if you're just in an apartment complex, I mean, there's not a whole lot you can do outside
Mm.
just to like come up with stuff. Or maybe for a lot of people, depending on where they are, it's like it wouldn't even be safe to go outside and do that. Um,
Yeah, like, okay, so your parents could take some time out to like go to a park, but like how much time is that going to be? And plus, there's like extra benefit in kids playing unsupervised. Like, it kind of puts more responsibility on them, and they have to figure
yeah,
more shit out. So even that's like not as fully beneficial as like just being able to go onto your own yard and do your thing.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I was definitely lucky in the sense that like it was a subdivision, pretty small towns, like super safe. I knew a majority of the neighbors, and so it was just that stereotypical thing of like going over to your friend's house, knocking on the door, and being like, "Hey,
Hmm.
can so and so come out and like, can we hang out?" That was
Hmm.
basically the majority of my childhood, and so. I would
Yeah,
like to do something similar, you know, when I am raising kids.
for sure. Uh, I got really lucky with my mom's house in high school. Had some good kids around, and you know, you might make fun of me for this. We got into badminton like one summer. Like we played
Okay.
so much badminton, and I swear to God, dude, it is so fun.
It probably
The
was. I mean, kinda
mhm.
corny, but I'm sure it was
And
fun.
you can't really shit on me because I know you like pickleball now. So
Yeah, I do. It's come full circle, so
uh,
that's fine. Um, alright, let's do we could probably finish this full list here. We've got 2 more. Um, the pros and cons of ambition. Um, this should be an interesting one because I think the both of us are pretty ambitious, I would say. Um, I definitely have some thoughts as far as, like, there's definitely a lot of pros to it, but definitely a lot of cons to it as well. What do you think some of, like, the cons would be? I think the pros are obvious, but what are some of the downfalls?
probably the over valuing of wealth.
Mhm.
I noticed that with me, especially when I like first got into adulthood. I just got very excited about uh, making money, and as we'll discuss, that's not inherently a bad thing. But I got to like I just got to a point where I saw it as something was more important than what it actually was. And like looking back, I'm not happy with how I handled like the little bit of money that I stumbled into. Like I wouldn't. So I get the money, but like nothing changes. I don't start doing more. I don't start buying food. When I go out with friends, I don't really like pay for any extra beers or nothing. And now looking at it like that's just I don't think that's the way to be if you are lucky enough to get money. But that just stemmed from my like yeah, I just valued money too much, and I think that
Mhm.
that came from my ambition.
Yeah, I can relate to that a lot. I used to be super stingy, and I would opt to not do a lot of things just for the sake of, like, saving the money. Um, and now I'm kind of at the point where I really try not to do that at all. If there's something that I wanna do and I wanna experience, then I'm gonna do it. Um, but I also think it's good to, like, I think it's good to note that, like, I'd say both of us were in the position to do that, where a lot of people aren't. Like, I think a lot of people like, I would say we sacrificed a lot more growing up than like, I think most people probably have the opposite of what we did. Like, them being young, they're like, "Oh, I'm young. Now's the time to, like, just spend my money freely, do what I wanna do, like, not think about it too much." Whereas me throughout, um, high school and, like, early 20s, that was my time of sacrificing. Like, I didn't really do much at all. Like, that was my time to, like, save money, grind, do what I can to, like, invest every penny that I have. And so that has now allowed me the freedom to, like, be a little more flexible with my spending and what I do. Uh, so I think there definitely needs to be a time where you do value money depending on the position that you're in. Because if you want to set yourself up for the future, like, that requires some level of, like, delayed gratification and sacrifice. Like, that's just inevitable. Unless you're content with living relatively paycheck to paycheck for the rest of your life, at some point you're gonna have to, like, really pump the brakes and sacrifice.
Yeah, and so kind of inspiration for this topic. Um, I think there's almost like sense now that ambition is bad or dangerous, which it certainly can be, but you do not want to discourage that within the people you trust, such as your kids or your friends' kids or just members of your community, because it's from ambition that people become successful. And then it is successful people who kind of set the parameters of the world. So my theory is that the reason you don't want to discourage ambition is because there are people who do not want the best for you, who do value ambition, and they are going to become successful, and then they're going to have control of whatever. Um, and so, yeah, I guess my point is just, I think we may undervalue that ambition, and I think that's ultimately dangerous.
Yeah. I look at someone like Elon, who has seemingly unlimited ambition, probably the most ambitious entrepreneur that we have probably ever seen, like quite literally set on changing Earth and also getting us to new planets that we haven't reached before. Like no one has come close to that. Um, but I also see how much he suffers. Like that's an unhealthy amount of ambition in my mind. Like that's not something that I would want to do, but I'm also very grateful that there are people out there that are willing to do that.
Yeah.
Cause he's changing the world for the better. And if he didn't have that extreme, absurd level of ambition, then we wouldn't have the Steve Jobs, the Elon Musks. Um, but
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And Elon, he's almost a special case because he doesn't seem to be tempted at all by the power that comes with success, that comes from
Mhm.
ambition. So I don't know if he's like, I recently learned about a guy, uh, might be better to talk about. So forget his name, William Caxton, I think maybe. But what he did back in the day, he brought the printing press over to England, and then he was like a big proponent, or he supported um, uh, the idea of like increasing England's literacy. He wanted more people to read, which inherently seems like a good thing. But the professor who told me about this, he stated, he's like, yeah, but he only did this because he wanted it. He wanted to make money. He wanted these people to learn how to read, so then he could push books.
Mhm.
And I could kind of tell the professor was like saying that as a to discredit this guy a little bit, or it was clear the professor thought that was a bad thing. Which it's like, yeah, his intentions are pure there, but the result is.
Mhm.
So is ambition bad or is it good? um, yeah, that was kind of the thing I was thinking about.
Yeah, I guess it really does come down to the outcome that you're producing and not so much like what you're using as the motivator to get there. Because there's a lot of extremely successful and wealthy entrepreneurs that it's pretty obvious that they really enjoy having a lot of money. Um, and I think if you're doing that at the detriment of others, like exploiting employees or, you know, harming the environment or whatever it might be, if you're using that as a means to attain wealth, then that's probably where it's obviously an evil thing. Um, which the next point we're going to talk about is wealth as a motivator, good or evil. I mean, that ties into this, but I think, yeah, it really just comes down to, I guess, the result that you're producing and not as much, what you're using as the motivation to get there. But I also think
Yeah,
like using wealth alone as your main source of motivation, that's just probably not a healthy thing to do in general. So you're kind of probably going to set yourself up for living like a very unhappy and unfulfilled life. Um, I don't think it should be. I think it's still okay to like have wealth as a source of motivation in some level or some capacity, but probably not the number one. Because once you do attain that level of wealth, then it's like, okay, well, then what? Um,
Yeah. Yeah. Um, because I'm trying to think of like what you do with a person who, well, this isn't always the case. Probably less so the case uh, than anything. But I think if you want to become ultra wealthy, there's a certain obligation you have to like run your business in an ethical manner and produce something that benefits society. So, like, let's say you have a
mhm.
guy like that. Like, he's like, money is the only thing he cares about, but he sees that his path to uh, unimat just wealth is ethical business practices and a beneficial product. So you have this monster that is just like creating good things, improving
Mhm.
the lives of everybody. What do you do with that person? You don't really trust him because he's a monster, but you don't you don't get rid of him because there are worse monsters.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think in that scenario, it's fine. Like, it's not like again, as long as they're not harming others, then are they really doing anything that bad? Like, we may not agree with their motivations, but I don't think it necessarily makes them wrong. Uh, as long
Yeah,
as they aren't, again, like using it to like take advantage of others or like do bad things to the world.
yeah, yeah. I guess that's because that's probably people who hate Elon. They probably see him as a monster, but then they let that like affect their view of what he does, and
Yeah.
that's incorrect
Yeah.
in my mind, and not not a logical position.
Yeah.
So they're not. Yeah, the problem we've laid out, they fail it. They're not good at it.
Yeah. Like I'm reading Elon's biography right now or autobiography. Or yeah, biography, whatever. And it'd be it'd be hard to make the argument that he's like that he would be like a good friend or like,
Hmm.
someone that you'd really want to work with. Um, that would just be like a pleasure to work with because that's not the case at all. Like he's extremely ruthless. Same for Steve Jobs. Like these people are just known for being assholes. Um, and at least in Elon's case, it doesn't seem like he has any level of motivation when it comes to money at all. Like he is extremely mission driven and like wants to like genuinely wants to change the world for the better. And as a result, he's definitely like a lot of mentions of people in the book that he has just been like extremely ruthless to like his employees or coworkers, whatever, that he'll be like there are ways you can handle conflicts within the workspace. Like you could do it in a very respectful way, professional way, or you can just scream at people, push them beyond their limits so you can get shit done. Elon's very much more like the latter. Um, and I like it would definitely harm people, but maybe that's a necessary evil in some way to like have these really big changes in our society happen. Because I don't think that he would be anywhere near as successful as he is and his companies producing as much change as they are if he didn't act the way that he did. Like he pushes people way past what their potential is. A lot of people just don't respond well to that. And so they don't last long at his companies. And then they'll go on the record of saying how how mistreated they were or whatever. And like, I get that. But for a lot of people, that's what they want. They want to be pushed beyond their limits because it's not, they aren't doing it for themselves. It's more like they're on board with the mission of what they're trying to do. And they see this sacrifice of happiness as a necessity in order for that to happen. Um, and so, yeah, it's kind of a little tangent there, but, um, I don't know. Someone like that, it's like, it'd be hard to make the argument that they're like, I think what he's doing is very good and beneficial for the world, obviously, but to be able to say that he's like a good person at heart, I'm not, I don't know if you could really say that.
Yeah,
Like, I think he has
and
good intentions, but the way that he kind of,
yeah,
treats others and makes that happen aren't good.
yeah, and that fits this pattern that I learned about the other day. It's just basically the point of what I was listening to was like, it's incorrect to, um, like, let's say there's a presidential election coming up. It's incorrect to base your vote off of whether or not you think they're like a nice person or not. It doesn't translate into the role of effective leader, um, often. And yeah, I think we probably drifted too far into that mentality as a nation. Being a leader is, I wouldn't want to do it. It's kind of one of those things like, um, sh- the role comes to me, yeah, I'll take it on, but like it's a lot of responsibility. And, as you were pointing out with Elon, like to be a good one, often you have to be ruthless. And
Mhm.
I'm not like exactly hardwired to be like that. But out of recognition of that's what it takes to be a good leader, like I could do it in the right circumstance. But regardless, like I think people probably just underestimate how difficult the world is, and the guy at the helm should be able to fucking handle that. Uh,
Yeah,
and so,
yeah. Especially when it comes to someone like leading a massive, massive company or leading a country, like that takes a very special kind of person to pull that off in a successful way. Um,
mm,
like I don't think I would necessarily consider myself to be like a ruthless person. I feel like I can be a good leader in the context of companies and like managing people, but I have no interest in like being the leader of a company that has 100,000 plus employees. Like I don't want to do that. Um, and I think to attain the levels of wealth that I want to attain, like I don't need to do that. Like you can be very successful having like a pretty small company. Uh, and I kind of prefer to do that anyways, just because it offers me a lot more freedom with what I want to do, um, without all of the stress of like having thousands of people like that
mm,
you have to support. And so
it's kind of a super hard tangent here, but that I think that is the beauty of the Midwest. Uh, caddying, let's caddy at here at Victoria National, which is they get a lot of like I would say like medium level businessmen.
Mhm.
Um, they're not the whatever. They're not coming from the highest places within American society, but they're whatever pretty far up there. But because they live here in Indiana or St. Louis or Chicago or whatever, maybe not Chicago, but they they live like kings, you know, top of
Mhm.
the world. But just because but yet all they do is own like small medium companies, and but yeah,
Mhm.
they're balling. So
Yeah. I think a lot of people don't necessarily realize that. Like they think to be able to like make a good living with your own company, they think they have to like start the next. Amazon or something, and that is just so far from the truth. Like, there are guys that run local lawn mowing businesses that pull in 7 figures a year, and, like, you never
Yeah.
know that they're that rich. Um,
Yep. Caddied for a guy out of Kentucky, owned a plumbing company. Dude was just dude was just
yeah,
balling. Yeah.
yeah.
Mhm.
So, I definitely use that as a big source of motivation because I think a lot of people get way too scared of starting a business or company or something because I think they do have to, like, "Oh, I have to try and picture myself, like, having, like, 50 employees and, like, doing all this and that," and it's like, "No, you don't have to." Like, there's so much that you could do either just by yourself or, like, maybe a couple coworkers or something, and, like, you can make ungodly amounts of money with just a couple of people.
Yeah. A good example, uh, this guy, it's actually who I bought our, townhome from, but he, s started a, air conditioning company, grew it to as far as he could grow it on his own, but then he just, hired a consulting company, and they took over, in some capacity, and then they, kinda laid out a path for him to, like, expand it, beyond where it was,
Mhm.
but in a very doable way for him, and so, uh,
Yeah.
mm,
Yeah, there's a lot of flexibility that comes with, um, choosing the way like, you can always choose how you want to operate your business and where you wanna take it. Like, there's a lot of people that they wanna start a business and grow it as big as they possibly can, and there's also a lot of people like for me, I'm kind of more of the opinion, like, I do wanna have a very successful company, but also I want to do that in a way to where it supports the lifestyle that I wanna have of being able to travel wherever I wanna go, whenever I wanna go, work whenever I want to. Like, if there's times I wanna take a 3-week trip somewhere, then, like, I wanna be able to do that, you know? I don't and there's a lot of people that get super locked into whatever there is they're doing, and they're like, they haven't taken a vacation in 5 years because 'cause they're just grinding, and, like, hey, if that's what you enjoy, then go for it, but for me, it's like I wanna use business to like, yes, I wanna attain a level of wealth with it, but wealth is not the sole goal. For me, it's more like the money is the
it
tool to build the lifestyle that I wanna build.
yeah, you want business to enhance your life, not to be your life.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
All right, well, I think yeah, that's all of our topics there.
Yeah.
You just wanna go ahead and wrap up here?
Yeah. Yeah, that works.
All right, yeah, that was a fun one. Thanks everybody for watching, and we'll be back again with another episode soon.